What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's second exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
And I'm the new and improved Anthony with the brand new great looking haircut.
And for this exclusive segment, we are going to be doing our weekly stardom, sit-em lineups, looking at guys that have good matchups, looking at guys who have bad matchups. There's a couple teams on bye this week. There's 4: Lions, Seahawks, Tampa, Washington. So we are going to be giving you players to plug in for, I don't know, Mike Evans being out, DeAndre Swift being out, Tom Brady being out. So be sure to tune in. Also, be sure to check out our other content this week. On Tuesday, we did our waiver wire episode. Those guys might still be available. We also had a podcast with a special guest, Sam from Sam Sports Talk. Be sure to check out the podcast. It was a great one. We also have a couple of other episodes coming out this week. We have a Best Bets episode coming out tomorrow. We also have our weekly pick'em coming out today on the podcast, so be sure to check that out. I still have a commanding lead, obviously.
It's over.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Ryan pretty much covered it all. And
Sponsor.
if you go out, if you're in the mood for some food local in the Delaware area, be sure to check out my family's business, Little Italy Pizza Shop. 2 locations. Link to the brand new website is in the description below. You got great people, great customer service, great family environment, amazing food made by yours truly, my dad, my uncle, all my family and friends that we work with. Come in, tell them that the greatest podcast on turf sent you for a percentage off of your meal. And with all that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, and we're about 2 minutes in now. So let's get into our stardom quarterbacks. I'll start. We got first guy on the list. I know this guy sucks. He's a sorry bum, but he has a great matchup against the Falcons this week at quarterback, and it's Taysom Hill. He's coming off a concussion, but Taysom Hill's a dual threat guy. He can get you to points on the run. He'll be throwing passes. I mean, I doubt that since he's quarterback, he'll be lining up wide to catch passes, but I mean, best believe he's going to be running the ball. He throws his body around to fight for extra yards. He's a good PPR quarterback option. I just don't think he's very good at football. I think he's a sorry bum, but I mean, for fantasy purposes, he's good. And he's going against an absolutely monstrous Atlanta Falcons defense that sucks. So, I mean, yeah, he's coming off a concussion, but he'll be fine. He's going to be the Taysom Hill that we've seen getting the fantasy points, getting right back in there, and he's going to have to step up to keep the Saints' dominance continuing. The defense can only do so much. He's going to have to step in for Jameis and do what we've seen him do, especially for fantasy. So, if you need to stream a quarterback this week because Tom Brady's on bye, because probably none of the other quarterbacks that are on bye you're starting. But if Tom Brady's on bye and you need to stream a quarterback because your only other options are Daniel Jones and Teddy Bridgewater, you should probably grab Taysom Hill. So start Taysom Hill this week.
Jumping into my stardom quarterback, it is Tua going up against the Houston Texans. The Texans have allowed the 6th most points of quarterback, and Tua has been pretty good so far in fantasy football purposes. He missed a couple weeks there with injury, but when he came back strong, putting up 25 points against the Jaguars, 30 against Atlanta. I know those 2 defenses are bad, but even against Buffalo, he put up a modest 15, which isn't that bad going up against one of the best defenses in all of football. Now going up against Houston, they aren't very good. They're not winning football games. The Dolphins, they didn't end up bringing Watson in. I'm sure Tua still has a chip on his shoulder from that because they did, do their due diligence. They did check in on it. So, Tua, if you need a streaming quarterback for this week, I highly recommend Tua. He can get it done on the ground. He's also throwing the ball a lot. I mean, the last 3 games, he's right around 40 attempts throwing the football. They are throwing the football. Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, he has some weapons. So, I would feel decently confident rolling with Tua going up against Houston Texans defense.
As long as he plays, because I know he hurt his little finger in practice, and he was crying about that. But, I mean, I'm sure he'll be fine. Hopefully he plays, and hopefully he don't get hurt, because I don't really trust Tua. But, yeah, for my sit-em quarterbacks this week, I had 2 of them, and the first guy is Ryan Tannehill. I'm a firm believer in Ryan Tannehill being a sorry bum that gets carried by Derrick Henry. And I'm going to stick with it. This will be a real test to see him play without Derrick Henry for 6 to 10 weeks. I don't think he's going to be good. I think he has the easiest job in the NFL, throwing slants to A.J. Brown and Julio, or just simply handing the ball off to Derrick Henry 40 times a game. They're playing the Rams this week, who have the best defense in football. Just got Von Miller, who's going to be playing this week. So, yeah, sit Ryan Tannehill. I mean, if you or other options are like any of the other guys we've said before, you probably got to start him. But I mean, I'm not starting Ryan Tannehill this week. I actually picked up Tua in the league I own Tannehill in because Tannehill sucks and he's going to suck without Derrick Henry. So sit Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, sit Ryan Tannehill because he sucks.
Jumping into my sit-em quarterback, it is Justin Fields going up against the Steelers. Justin Fields last week, he did really good fantasy purposes. He had 100 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, putting up 27 fantasy points. Now, that's probably not going to happen again going up against the Steelers defense. Look, 100 rushing yards is very good. And if your starting quarterback gets you 100 yards rushing, you're going to have good weeks way more times than not. But I don't see him going against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is very good against quarterbacks, very good defense in general. They have been getting better each week. And the Chicago Bears offense, they're not very good. Him and Allen Robinson haven't been clicking. Mooney's been okay. They still don't have David Montgomery. Herbert's been okay, but I do not feel confident starting Justin Fields going up against the Steelers. And then he has a bye week next week. So you might be able to roll Justin Fields after the bye week. He's got Baltimore, then Detroit, which is a great matchup. Yeah. But I would not feel confident starting Justin Fields until he shows me that he can do what he just did again. That 100-yard game might be a fluke, and if it is, you're probably going to want to stay away from him. But if he keeps rushing the football 60 yards, 50, 60 yards a game, that's a pretty safe floor fantasy quarterback. But right now, I don't trust him, especially against his defense.
Yeah, when your offense is running through Khalil Herbert, getting 43, 45 touches in 2 games, it's probably not good, especially going against an experienced Steelers defense with Mike Tomlin, a very experienced head coach. And I just figured I'd throw this out there. This guy is probably a known sit-em now, but Sam Darnold, for the simple fact that Bill Belichick owns Sam Darnold. Bill Belichick has Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. So Don't start Sam Darnold this week. I'll leave it at that. And to my first stardom running back, my starting running backs this week are kind of like not names you want to see in a stardom for fantasy. But the first guy is Myles Gaskin. I know this is like a debatable one, toss-up, but hold on, my dad just texted me. I caught you actually. Gotcha. But yeah, where was I? Sorry, I got... Daryl Henderson just ran all over the Houston Texans last week. And I'm not saying that Myles Gaskin is nearly as good as Daryl Henderson, because to be honest, he's not. But the fact of the matter is, Myles Gaskin is a very, very inconsistent piece of the offense, but I think he'll be able to get the job done against the Texans this week. Texans, like Ryan said, talking about Tua, they're not a very good defense. They're not. They give up a lot of points. They just traded one of the young, promising edge rushers they had in Charles Omenihu. So, I mean, look for Myles Gaskin to come in. Look for the Dolphins to get the run game going because they have lost 3 in a row, and the run game's been kind of inconsistent. Yeah, they're throwing the ball a lot. But, I mean, in the NFL, if you don't have a successful run game, you're probably not going to win many games. And what better way to get your run game going and to maybe go on a little run than the Houston Texans? So look for Myles Gaskin this week to come in, have a great game like he did 2-3 weeks ago against Jacksonville. Look for him to pick up and just get going. If you have Myles Gaskin this week, you heard it here first. You got to start him this week.
Jumping into my first stardom running back, my running backs aren't pretty either, but this is what you need in a stardom running back list. You don't want good running backs because that's really not saying much. I'm not going to tell you to start Jonathan Taylor. So jumping into my first stardom running back, it is Darryl Williams going up against the Packers. It doesn't look like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is coming back yet. And Darryl Williams did pretty good last week against the Giants. I know Frank Gore's close relative, Derek Gore, whatever.
Is it actually his close relative?
I don't think so. I know he, ruined some people's days, you could say. But Darryl Williams still had 6 receptions. He had 14 fantasy points. He has been all right so far in fantasy purposes. And essentially, it's as simple as this. A lot of running backs are hurt. A lot of running backs are on bye. So when you have Darryl Williams, who has been pretty good so far, you have to roll him up against this Packers defense, who is not very good. They allow 4.7 yards per carry. They lost Aaron Rodgers, so you're looking at the Chiefs hopefully blowing them out, hopefully having a big lead in the second half and being able to run the football. Darryl Williams, I would start him this week, especially if I'm dealing with, DeAndre Swift,
Gibson,
Leonard
McKissick,
Fournette, Antonio Gibson,
McKissick.
Derrick Henry, all these guys. So, yeah, start Darryl Williams this week.
Yeah, the Chiefs suck. I think we talked about it more in the podcast, so link in the description. Be sure to check that out while you're at it. And another stardom guy this week is similar situation to Darryl Williams. Boston Scott. Boston Scott saw the same amount of carries as Jordan Howard, yes, but the Patriots running back core just ran all over the Chargers. Chargers defense got exposed up the middle. I mean, Boston Scott is the RB1 there. Kenneth Gainwell's not. Jordan Howard, yeah, they had the same touches, but Boston Scott's much more versatile. I mean, pretty much put it like this. Boston Scott's the running back one. If the Eagles get down to the Chargers or if they get in a shootout, Boston Scott will be in the game. It won't be Jordan Howard, and it probably won't be Kenneth Gainwell either from what we saw last week. And I mean, the Eagles, after watching the Chargers get ran all over by the Patriots, the Eagles are probably going to look to come out how they came out last week, only have to throw the ball 14 times a game and still score 40 points and get a big win. So if you have Boston Scott, if he's still available on waivers, which he is in some leagues, pick him up and start him this week. There's a lot of buys, there's a lot of injuries. Boston Scott, he's probably out there, and he's a pretty safe start this week against the Chargers defense. It's been very, very bad against the run as of late.
My next starting running back is Devontae Booker going up against the Raiders. Saquon probably ain't going to play again. I'm pretty sure he just got diagnosed with COVID. So Devontae Booker looks like he's going to be the lead back again for the New York Giants. And he has been pretty solid as a backup running back in fantasy football purposes. 3 of his last 4 games, he's had at least 10 fantasy points. The game that he didn't, he had 9 going up against a Rams defense that, if you guys don't know, they are pretty good. And he's going up against a Raiders defense that isn't all of that. They're not the Rams defense, that's for sure. And like I said, he's been getting the ball a lot. He's been decent so far in fantasy purposes. So if you're dealing with having Saquon on your team and you happen to have Booker, I would feel pretty decent rolling him against this Raiders defense.
Revenge game. It's a Devontae Booker revenge game.
I don't remember him being a Raider. I know he was a Bronco.
Maybe he wasn't a Raider. Hold on.
Actually, no, he was last year, I think. I'm pretty sure he took away from Josh Jacobs sometimes.
Devontae Booker Raiders. Yeah, he was a Raider.
Nice.
That's the same guy. Yeah, it's definitely Devontae Booker. My sit-em running back this week is a guy who's coming off a big game last week, Michael Carter. Simple as this. Ryan said this to me the other day. Can never trust a Jets starting running back. Can't. It's like trusting a Detroit Lion. Yeah, DeAndre Swift has been the exception so far. But one good game for Michael Carter against the Bengals, an absolute fluke. Not good. The Colts are a very good defense. They're good against the run. Their defense is pretty well-rounded, and they've been as of late. So, I mean, sit Michael Carter this week. I'm not starting a Jets running back. I'm sorry. Yeah, they won last week. They played good, but it's not going to continue. I promise you the Jets suck. And the Colts defense is pretty good, so sit Michael Carter, and that's really all I have to say.
My 2 sit-em running backs this week. The first one is Carlos Hyde going up against the Bills.
Yeah.
The Bills are a pretty good defense in general. They're pretty good against the run. Carlos Hyde, he should not do much against this Bills defense. The Jaguars in general should not do much against this Bills defense. I could see this being a blowout, which means bad game script for Carlos Hyde. Yeah, Urban Meyer's probably going to feed him the ball, so if you are really down bad, you can start him and you'll get volume, but don't look for a high upside day. Don't look for a touchdown. Hopefully get 10 points and get out of there.
Question.
Yes.
Are you taking the 14.5 point spread? Wait, don't tell me. If you want to find out what spreads we're taking tomorrow, be sure to check out our best bets episode tomorrow coming out. Our best bets. We're currently 34-20 on best bets. Last week was rough. We're still pretty good. We're still making money. So if you want to know any best bets at all, be sure to check it out tomorrow. If you want to know our locks of the week, check it out tomorrow. Be on the lookout. We even covered some on the podcast this week. So after this video, check out the podcast, place your bets, and win some money. Guaranteed big money.
That's pretty smooth. Anyways, jumping into my next sit-em running back, it is Javonte Williams going up against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that Javonte Williams should have took the job already. I'm not sure why it hasn't happened because he's looked better than Melvin Gordon.
Suck.
The Broncos suck. He's also right there. But Javonte Williams going up against the Dallas defense that is pretty good against the run. They just shut down Dalvin Cook not that long ago. And I wouldn't blame you for starting Javonte Williams if you were dealing with, injuries or whatever. I also wouldn't blame you if Melvin Gordon wasn't there. But since you have Javonte Williams splitting carries with Melvin Gordon, going up against a pretty good run defense in a negative game script, if Dak Prescott plays, I would not feel confident starting Javonte Williams. So if you have better options, he could definitely ride the bench. If you have Devontae Booker, Javonte could definitely ride the bench. That's where we're at.
Fair. But if you're like me and Derrick Henry and Antonio Gibson were your first 2 picks, and now you have Zach Moss, Mike Davis,
and Javonte
and
Williams.
Javonte Williams.
Good luck.
Good luck. For my starting wide receiver this week, I only have one. We'll pretty much just go into pass catchers now because I had to sit him tight end this week. So for our first starting pass catcher, we got Robert Woods. I know Robert Woods was on the fantasy sit-him list for a while there. He wasn't producing much. It looked like Matt Stafford was kind of just isolating his targets to Cooper Kupp. Robert Woods wasn't getting involved as much. But, I mean, as of late, we've seen Robert Woods see an increase in touches. I mean, after that one bad game, he's kind of been on a roll lately. 21 points, 15 points, 11 points, 27 points. Robert Woods been killing it. Robert Woods is back on the weekly stardom radar. I benched him last week like a dummy because I didn't think he was going to be good. Yeah, his foot's been bothering him, but he's set to play this week. He's gotten 9 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets, 14 targets. He's seen a lot of targets, which targets usually result in volume. And for the Rams going up against the Titans defense, who is the worst against the pass this year, that a game that the Titans are probably going to have the score in. I mean, it has the makings to be a shootout, but I think that the Titans get absolutely blown out. Go ahead and start Robert Woods this week. You can't regret it. Start Robert Woods.
Jumping into my
Because the Titans suck, and so does Ryan Tannehill.
First stardom pass catcher, it is the Ravens receivers going up against the Minnesota Vikings. We saw last week Dallas Cowboys receivers had themselves a day going up against this Vikings defense. CD had 100 yards, Cooper had 100 yards and a tutty. Cedric Wilson had, I think, 60 yards and a tutty, that real big play.
He's number 85, that receiver too. He had a good game.
Noah Brown.
Noah Brown had a good game too.
So I think Marquise Brown will have a really good day against the Vikings. I think you can start Marquise Brown. He's been a really good wide receiver so far. I'm pretty sure if you look at his numbers total throughout the year, he's a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 on that fringe. The other guy, Rashad Bateman, I wouldn't probably suggest starting him in your fantasy lineup, but I would take a shot on him in like a daily fantasy, like a DraftKings, something like that. He will be cheap. I think he's going to do pretty good on this Ravens offense. Like I said, the Vikings, they just got torched by Cooper Rush. So feel free to start Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, and is that your only?
No, I had 2.
Oh,
Did you have 2?
No, I only. Oh, I did. I totally missed him. My second stardom wide receiver this week, Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders was held catchless last week. He had a couple drops. He only had 4 targets. But we're going to go up. Buffalo's going up against a Jaguars defense that just got torched by Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett, while DK Metcalf had a day. So in theory, Josh Allen, Geno Smith, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Stephon DK, Emmanuel Sanders is a receiver 2 with Josh Allen, Tyler Lockett is a receiver 2 with Geno Smith. So in theory, Emmanuel Sanders is in for a big day to come off a big bounce back game of him having a pretty good year for fantasy. I know he probably screwed you last week. He screwed me in 2 leagues. He screwed my dad in another league. But I mean, I wouldn't look too much into it. I think Emmanuel Sanders is a very safe start this week going up against Jacksonville.
The next pass catcher I'll be talking about is Jalen Waddle going up against the Houston Texans. This matches my Tua stream. You can stack these guys if you wanted to, if you were feeling bold. But yeah, Jalen Waddle the past 3 weeks has been pretty solid for fantasy. He had 13, 8, and 12 targets in the last 3 weeks when Tua came back. Last week he didn't do that good. He had about 5 fantasy points. Granted, he was going up against the Bills defense, and I think that they are a little bit better than the Houston Texans. So I think that he will have more success going up against this Houston Texans defense, a lot more success. And if he still sees around 8, 9, 10 targets, I think it's a pretty good option to throw in at receiver when Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf are all out.
Quintez Cephas.
Especially if you're in a league where you have to start 3 receivers, I would feel pretty confident starting Jalen Waddle against the Houston Texans.
Absolutely, which leads me to my sit-em pass catchers this week. I had 2 New England Patriots on here, actually.
Wow.
First off, we got Jacoby Myers. Pretty much Gilmore revenge game.
Don't ever start Jacoby Myers either.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, Gilmore's playing out for Bud this week. If Mackie Jeezy throws to his side, I'm not going to be happy. So yeah, sit Jacoby Myers this week.
My first sit-em pass catcher.
That is not good because I have him in 3 leagues now.
I don't know if you're going to sit this guy. because it's kind of hard to sit this guy. But daily fantasy, I definitely would not be putting him on any teams. And it is DJ Moore going up against the New England Patriots. I know he's a big name. I get that. But Sam Darnold's not going to have a good day. The Patriots are pretty well known to shut down the biggest weapon on an opposing team. And I would say that it's DJ
It's the
Moore.
Belichick way.
I would say that it's literally DJ Moore. Christian McCaffrey may or may not play. If he does play, it's going to help out DJ Moore, obviously. I kind of doubt it, though. And if he doesn't play, DJ Moore is probably going to get shut down unless my man is a absolute stud, because the Patriots kind of lock into one player. That's what they do. And if DJ Moore's the one player that they lock into, maybe Robbie has a day. I don't know.
I just dropped Robbie, so I hope not.
But I wouldn't be confident starting DJ Moore against the Patriots. If you're dealing with buys and you have to, be my guest. I understand, but I would not feel happy about it at all.
It's good to know. Hold on. So does that mean T. Higgins is a start over him, or do I start Khalil Herbert in the flex over him?
Don't know.
We'll discuss that on the podcast. Who are some other options that Anthony should start? For my other sit-em pass catcher this week, Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, he's been a very serviceable tight end for you to get off the waivers, but last week I realized that he's kind of touchdown dependent, and the Panthers have been fairly good against tight ends this year. They just held Kyle Pitts to absolutely nothing. I don't know the specific numbers, but they've been pretty good against tight end. I think they've given up less than 5 touchdowns to tight ends all year. Kyle Pitts didn't do good against them, and last week against the Chargers, Hunter Henry wasn't targeted all that much. Maybe he'll get targeted now because they got Gilmore and CJ Henderson playing the boundary for Carolina. But Hunter Henry's probably not a safe start this week unless you absolutely have to, because nobody else is on the waivers and he's your only tight end. So, go ahead and you probably sit Hunter Henry, because I'm not really comfortable with starting him this week.
The next guys I'm sitting in is the Browns receivers going up against the Bengals.
I don't know what's going on.
This is really as simple as, like you said, don't know what's going on in Cleveland. Odell Beckham Jr. is apparently not a part of the team, so one would think that Jarvis Landry might be a good start. But Jarvis Landry has a bad knee. So I'm probably staying away from the Browns receivers in general. I'm not sure if Donovan Peoples-Jones is healthy or not, but he probably has the best relationship with Baker Mayfield, and that's not really good.
Nope.
And I also think that the Browns are going to go back to simpler times. Probably just run the football against the Bengals. Try to just squeak out with a win. But Donovan Peoples-Jones looks like he's back in practice. He might play. I would not feel confident starting any Browns receivers. I would start the Browns running backs, but the receiving room, it's not looking good in Cleveland.
Nope.
Not sure what's going to happen with Odell. We will touch on that on the podcast.
Link in the description. Check it out.
So, yeah, I would not feel confident starting him.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to wrap this one up. If you guys have any questions on who to start, who to sit, drop them in these comments. Hit us up on Instagram. I know a couple of you guys have, or hit us up in our TikTok comments. That seems where we get most of our start 'em, sit 'em comments. So be sure to do that. Like, subscribe, check out the podcast, check out this week's earlier content, and be on the lookout for Best Bets tomorrow. And with that being said, we'll see you guys tomorrow on Best Bets.
See ya.
Peace.